What's up everyone, I'm Nick, this is Swiftful Thinking, and in this playlist we are building a SwiftUI to-do list app. And in this video we're going to focus a little bit on user experience, because right now when our list is empty, the screen looks really blank, and that's not a good user experience. So instead we're going to add a little message on the screen telling our users that there are no items on the list, giving them an option to add new items, and then we're going to add a little bit of animation just to make it look really cool. All right, so we are back in Xcode, of course, and in the last video in the series, we actually put together some logic to save the items in our app. So now all of our items are being saved in user defaults. But you might have noticed in the last video, when we first ran our app while it was using the user defaults, at the launch of the app, we had no items in our list. And it looked a little bit like this. If I delete these items, our list is completely empty. So it's correct to not show any items. But if this was an app and we had like a user using our app, they might see this screen and think that it didn't finish loading because it looks very blank here. And we're not really sure if the app is just not working correctly or is our list actually empty. So what I want to do is put a little notification, a little text here just saying that the to-do list is empty, just to signal to the user that this is the list, this is the screen, but there are no items right now. So we're just going to create a very simple view to put right here when the to-do list is empty. So we're not going to need the simulator, so I'm going to just press stop and close out of the simulator because the simulator does slow down your computer a little bit. It does cause the fan to go on because it's a lot of computing power. So I try to close it whenever possible. And in our project here, I'm going to open up the canvas. And if you click resume on the canvas, it should build with an empty list. And that's because we're using our new list view model. And in the preview, we don't have anything saved in the user defaults. And what I want to do is add some logic so that if there are no items in this list, we show that the new view that we're about to create instead of this list. But regardless of whether we show a list or this new view, I want to always keep this navigation title and the bar items on the screen. So even if we don't have this list, I still want to keep this. And what I'm going to do is add a Z stack first, open the brackets. I'm going to cut the list in the list style. And in this Z stack, we're going to add some logic. We're going to say if list view model dot items, which is the items array, dot is empty. So if it is empty and there are no items, open the brackets. And here we're going to add a text and we'll just write no items. And then we'll say else. So if it is not empty and there is items, we're going to paste in the list that we just cut here. So the list is only going to be shown if there are items, and then if there are no items, right now we're just going to show this text. But regardless of whether we're showing this text or the list, this navigation title and the bar items will always be on the screen. So now that we have this, we can see the no items is showing, but of course, we want to customize this to make it look better than just saying no items. So let's create a new file to do this. I'm going to open up the navigator. I'm going to right click somewhere in the views folder, create a new file. It's going to be a SwiftUI view. And let's call this no items view. Go ahead and click create. Once you're inside, click resume on the canvas. And I'm going to hide the navigator because we're not going to use it for a while. All right, now this view is going to be fairly simple. We're going to get started by adding a scroll view to the screen. Open the brackets. And if we add some text in here, we can see that it goes all the way to the top of the screen. And part of the reason I'm adding the scroll view, if we click on it, you can see that it does have a max height of infinity. It extends as big as possible. And also it formats the content to be all the way at the top. And it's just handy because if we just had text here, it would be right in the center of the screen. And I want this content to be pushed to the top. So I'm going to do a scroll view. And while we're here, let's just make it as big as possible, just in case our content isn't for some reason the full width of the screen. So on the scroll view, we'll just add dot frame. I'm going to use the min max completion, and we only need the max width of infinity and the max height of infinity. And you could have typed that in directly. We don't need the alignment. You could have typed this in. Sometimes I just like using the completions. And one other thing I want to note is that when we are showing this no items view, so when we're in this list view and we have the no items here, we are in a navigation view. So we have a navigation title on this screen. So if I go back into our no items view, we are actually going to be in a navigation view. So let's add that quick to the preview. We'll add a navigation view, open the brackets, paste this inside, and let's just add a navigation title, just say title for now. And just so we know what it looks like when it's going to be on the actual screen. So our scroll view starts down here now. And in the scroll view, let's add a VStack. Open the brackets. Let's add a text. This will be the title. It says, there are no items. You can put whatever you want in this title. Let's make it .font of title. Let's give it a font weight of semi-bold. Semi-bold always looks good. Below this text, let's add a description. We'll do another text, and we're going to say, are you a productive person? I think you should click the add button and add a bunch of items to your to-do list. And on the entire VStack, let's give it a multi-line text alignment of center. So it's center aligned, and on this VStack, let's add maybe some spacing of 10. And on the entire VStack, right below this multi-line alignment, let's just add some padding to push it all in of maybe 40. I think that looks good. So we have our screen mostly complete, and now all I want to do is put a button below this. So in addition to the add button that we have on the top right of the screen, I also want to add a big button here to get people to actually click on it to go to our add view. So when we click this button is actually going to be a navigation link because we want to navigate within our navigation view. We're going to push to the add view. So we'll add a navigation link, open the parentheses. We're going to use the destination and label completion. Destination will be our add view, which we made a couple videos back. And our label, instead of just saying navigate, let's click resume so that we know that it builds. Our label, instead of saying navigate, let's say add something. And then I'm going to press Control Command Space to bring up the emoji keyboard and maybe use the party face because everybody loves the party face. Let's give this some formatting. So let's do maybe foreground color of white, font of headline. Let's give it a background color of color.accent color. And we're going to update this accent color in a second. By default, it is blue. That's the blue that you see like across the whole app when we create buttons. We're going to update it in a second actually. But before this background, let's add a .frame with a height of 55 and a .frame with a max width of infinity. After the background, let's add .corner radius of 10. Now our button looks pretty good. Now we could just leave this. This looks pretty good, but I want to add a little bit of animation just because animations always make your app look a little bit better, and it would be good practice to just run through some basic animations. So at the top of this view, let's create an @state var. Let's call it animate of type bool, and we'll set it equal to false. We want to animate when this appears on the screen. So at the bottom of the VStack, maybe underneath the padding here, let's add onAppear, open the brackets, and in this onAppear call, we're going to add some animation. So there's going to be a little bit of logic in our animation call. So I'm going to actually create a function down here underneath the body. So you can double click on the open brackets in the body. You'll find the end of it. And underneath the body, we're going to add a func add animation, open and close the parentheses, open the brackets, and we're going to call this from our onAppear call. And I actually want to use the perform completion. I clicked the wrong one before. Let's call .onAppear and go to the perform completion. And then we're going to get rid of these brackets here. And the function we're going to call is add animation. Let's get rid of this one here. So we have our nice and clean onAppear. It's calling add animation. and this is our function. And when the screen appears, I want to delay 1 second before the animation starts. So let's add a delay first. We'll call dispatch queue.main.async after. The deadline will be .now plus, let's do 1.5 for 1.5 seconds. And then in the execute, I'm going to hit enter, and we can put our animation code here. So to cause the animation, we are going to, of course, toggle the animate boolean, and we want to do it with animation. So we'll call with animation dot ease in out, which is a nice one. And then we'll open the brackets, and in here we'll call animate dot toggle. So when this appears, it's going to add animation, and the add animation is going to wait 1.5 seconds and then toggle. One thing I want to note quickly is that the onAppear gets called every time the screen appears. So in our app, if a user had opened our main screen of our app, press the add button to go to the second screen, and then press the back button to go back to this screen, the onAppear would get called when they first loaded the app, and then again when they press the back button to come back to this screen. Because the onAppear gets called every time this screen appears. And while that's good, I don't want to add the animation twice, because if we already have the animation running, we don't want to toggle it again. So just in case that ever were to happen, we're going to add a quick little check here. We're going to make sure that this animate boolean is false, because if it's true, then it's already animating. So before we call the dispatch queue, let's just call guard not animate else return. So we're going to say guard make sure animate is not true. So animate is false. Otherwise return, because if animate is true, we're just going to return out of the function. We're not going to go through with this. So we're making sure we don't call it twice. And now let's add a little bit of animation. So the first thing we're going to do is the background, and I'm going to close the navigator and maybe zoom out a little bit just so we can put more code on the screen. The background color right now is color.accent color, but let's make it, if it's animate, we're going to use a ternary operator, question mark, and we'll do color.red. Otherwise, let's do color.accent color. So if I click resume on the canvas and I press the play in the live preview, it should now animate from blue to red. Awesome. And that was good, but we can do it a little bit better. I don't want it to just go from blue to red. I want it to keep going from blue to red. So let's customize the animation. So instead of just ease in out, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to press enter, make these on separate lines, and let's add a custom animation. We'll call animation, capital A. Then we'll add modifiers to the animation. We'll call it dot ease in out. But this time let's use the duration so we can make it a little bit longer than it normally is. So we'll call 2.0 for 2 seconds. And then we'll call dot repeat forever. And now if we click play on the live preview, it should go from blue to red with a duration of 2 seconds, and it should repeat forever. And this is looking a little better already, but I think we can make it even better. So on this navigation link, on the whole navigation link, let's add some padding. Let's use the edges, and we'll do dot horizontal. And then maybe let's see what it looks like with 30. So it's looks a little smaller when it's 30 here. And what about 50? And that's even smaller. So let's animate between those two. We'll call animate question mark. If it's animate, we'll do 30, otherwise 50. And now our button looks like it's kind of getting bigger and smaller, or a little bit wider, just because we're animating the padding on the outside of the button. Let's also give it a little bit of a scale effect. We'll call dot scale effect. Go down to the CG float option, and we'll do animate. If it's animate, let's do 1.1 times the current size. Otherwise, we'll do 1.0, so just the current size. So now it should looks like it gets a little bit bigger and then a little bit smaller. Let's also animate the offset so it looks like it's moving up and down a little. So we'll do dot offset. And we're not going to use the X, so we'll delete it. The Y we'll do animate question mark. Maybe -7, otherwise 0. So it should look like it's moving up and down now. Moves up a little, moves down a little bit. And now that it's moving up, let's put a little extra spacing between these two items. So underneath the text here, I'm going to call dot padding edges of bottom, and then maybe 20. It should move it down a little. And finally, let's add a little bit of shadow onto this. I think the shadow will make it really cool, and let's animate the shadow as well. So after the padding, we'll call .shadow, and we're going to use the color and radius completion. And let's put all of these parameters on separate lines. And my computer sounds like it is going to overheat. The fan is going crazy, so I think it's because that animation was running. But I'm going to take a break real quick so you don't have to listen to this fan, and be right back. Alright, so let's animate the color of the shadow the same way we're animating this color here. So I'm just going to copy this, and let's put it on the shadow. But instead of the full color, let's call .opacity of 0.7 on both of these. Call it after the accent color as well, just because the shadow usually shouldn't be as strong as the actual button color. For the radius, let's animate it. So we'll call animate ? And we'll make it fairly big when it's animating, so 30, otherwise 10. And we should see the shadow behind the button a little bit now. Let's keep the X as 0. And the Y, let's also animate. So I want to push it down a little bit so it's below the button, because our button is hovering upward. So we'll do animate ? Maybe 50, otherwise 30. So this is kind of the same amount as, it's kind of the opposite of the padding. So our shadow is below it now. And I think this is going to look really cool if we press play. So let's hit play on the live preview, and now we have our button. And it should look like it's kind of hovering a little bit, which is cool. And the shadow is animating with the button, which looks really natural. I like it. Alright, and now the last thing I want to do in this video is just update these colors, because this blue is the accent color. And the accent color, and when we've been coding all of our buttons that default to blue, that's all because the accent color is by default blue. But we can customize this accent color a little bit. And I also want to change out this red color because I want this to be a custom color as well. So we're going to create an accent color as well as a secondary accent color that we're going to put here. To update the accent color globally across our entire app, we can open up the navigator, go to the assets folder, and there is a accent color that's already in the folder. And by default it is blue, but we can click it here and then customize it by opening up the inspector. We can then click on Show Color Panel, and here we can change the color to whatever we want. And I'm on the Crayons tab, and I'm going to use this dark purple here. I think this is going to be a cool purple, so this is the eggplant color. I'm going to close out of this. So now our accent color instead of blue is purple. And I'm going to right click on this column here, create a new color set. Let's call it Secondary Accent Color. And the secondary accent color, I'm going to change the appearance to none for now. So now, right now it's just white, but let's click on it. Let's open the color panel, and I'm going to make this a different button than our purple because it's going to animate from this purple to this new color. I'm going to pick this maroon because this looks like it could be kind of natural going from purple to maroon instead of like purple to yellow, but you're welcome to use whatever color you want here, of course. I'm going to close out of this, and now we have our secondary accent color. So let's go back into the No Items view, and I'm going to hide the navigator, hide the inspector as well, we don't need that, and this color red, let's change out for our new color. But we're also going to call it down here, we have color red. So since we're going to call it twice, I'm going to actually make it a variable at the top of our screen. So up underneath this animate, let's call let secondary accent color equals color, open the parentheses. We're going to use the name, and it's going to be secondary accent color. This is the name we just gave it in the assets.xc assets folder. And let's take this secondary accent color, and where we have color red, we'll use that. And down here as well, color red, instead we'll call secondary color, secondary accent color dot opacity. If I click resume on the canvas, We should now see our colors build in. If it's not building, you can click Command Shift K to clean and rebuild, and then the new color should come in. So the accent color is purple, and when we animate, we should animate from this purple to that maroon. And this is looking pretty cool. All right, and the last thing we're going to do now is put the no items view into the rest of our app. So let's open the navigator, let's open up the list view, and where we have no items, instead we're going to add our no items view. Open and close the parentheses. So let's click run on the simulator and test it out and see if it all looks good. Alright, so 1.5 seconds in, we have our animation starting. And if we click on this, we should navigate to the next screen. Awesome. And when we come back, the animation should still be going, which it looks like it is. Let's try it one more time. We'll go add, and we'll go back. And this is looking great. And if we add an item, it should then go away. So let's say my first item, save. And now we have this screen, of course. We can toggle it, we can then delete it, and when we delete it, our no items should be back. Let's finish this up by actually adding a little bit of transition there so that it didn't just pop on the screen, it actually kind of animated onto the screen. So let's take this no items view, let's call dot transition, and we'll call it any transition dot opacity dot animation dot ease in. So this should give a little bit of animation when this comes onto the screen. Let's click run on the simulator one final time. And our animation should start. And let's add an item. And that's working. And then when we delete it, our new screen should kind of animate the opacity when it comes onto the screen. And it did. That looked really cool. Alright everyone, thank you all for watching. That's it for this video. We are very close to being done with this app. I hope you guys are liking it. It's looking really cool. As always, I'm Nick, this is Swiftful Thinking, and I'll see you in the next video.